Welcome to Inspired Living with Keri Murphy, the podcast, where as your host each and every week, I am going to inspire you and empower you to share your message and step into that big vision you see for yourself. I'll be bringing you celebrity interviews, influencer insights, and my personal tips from decades as an on-camera talent, TV host, media expert, and entrepreneur, so you can build a brilliant seven-figure brand. Because when you're inspired, you inspire others. So let's go. Hello and welcome back to the show. I have to tell you, I am so excited to interview Miss Katrina Scott today on the podcast. You know, if you are one of those people that have a big vision for your life, but you're not 1,000% sure how you're going to make it happen, Katrina is going to be sharing with you today what she has done to build one of the most successful fitness empires in the world. You know what I love about Katrina? She is authentic. She is real. She cares so much about her community. And in this interview, we're going to talk all about how she's built this incredible brand, the lessons she's learned, the things she would not do again, and how she is continually in a place of evolving and evolution and may not even know how it's all going to come together. This is an interview you do not want to miss with the co-founder of Tone It Up, brand expert and new mom, Katrina Scott. All right, Miss Katrina Scott, you have no idea how excited I am to have you on the show. I feel like we've been working on this for a while and the day has come.
Yay.
And we're practically neighbors. So one of these days we're going to get that glass of wine and we're actually going to sit down in person. But for this, Katrina, first of all, there's nothing I love more than speaking to amazing businesswomen that have built brilliant brands. And you have certainly done that over the years. I mean, when I read up that Tone It Up is one of the most successful fitness empires in the world, I mean, girl, that is not a small feat. Like, I want to hear so much. We're going to talk business, we're going to talk life, but I want to know, like, you didn't wake up one day and have a fitness empire. I'm assuming that was not the case.
Yes. No.
No. So right. Well, that's good. So you always kind of had the vision for it.
Yes. I knew that I wanted to do something great, and I had a feeling of a greater purpose, for sure. And
I really think that's where it begins, right? Yeah. Like you don't exactly know what it's going to look like, but there's this inner knowing that there's something big in there.
Yeah, for sure. Like I even in high school, I was dreaming of, what I could create one day, and I would create vision boards, and, some of my friends probably thought I was crazy, but you kind of have to be unafraid to look a little crazy to have these big ideas. I hope that your idea is so big that everyone around you goes, wait, what?
Right.
I mean, that means you're on something. If they have never seen it before, of course, you're going to get that reaction. So it was a lot of that for a while, but I'm really, really grateful for even the beginning where it was like, okay, well, when are you going to get a real job? My dad being like, what's this YouTube thing? He's so cute. But even my parents were number one supporters on everything, even me moving to California and pursuing this too. So I think that is really important, surrounding yourself, whether it's parents or friends or anybody. A lot of times maybe family doesn't really support you, but surrounding yourself with people that lift you up is really, that's important. And if the people around you aren't supporting you, then finding amazing women like you and groups and mentorship and masterminds, that's completely, it's so important to have that support around you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more because Katrina, less than 4% of all women-owned businesses make over seven figures. Like that number to me is just, it blows my mind. Mm-hmm. And going back to something that you said, I'll never forget, someone said to me when I told them what I did, they're like, oh, so you have a little crazy in your DNA. And I'm like, yeah, I think I do. And I think that it's okay to feel a little crazy because if you were, quote, normal, right, you wouldn't achieve that 4%, 2%, 1% success out there. Right? So let's go back. Take me back, Katrina, to where you started. I know you were in Boston. And here's the thing. I teach people how to be on camera. And you started on YouTube as one of the first ever fitness experts. Yeah. So tell me about that.
Yeah. YouTube was all music. And someone had asked me to be on a YouTube channel. And they were hosting kind of these workouts and nutrition things. And I had never been on camera before, but I had been teaching fitness classes with, 60 to 100 people. And that's scary.
Yeah.
And then teaching in front of camera lens, that's actually even more scary. Like I feel like I thrive and feed off of energy in a room and a bunch of people being there. But talking to a lens, I was like, oh my gosh. But I think when you're afraid, just say yes. And you never know what you'll find out or learn. Like you could totally learn that, you know what, I don't want to be on camera. And I want to have a podcast where I'm behind the mic. Like you might actually discover your brilliance in different ways. And that's amazing. And so what I realized being on camera, even though I was really uncomfortable at first, is I could actually speak to millions of women. And that was my purpose. I knew that I wanted to help women and whatever in all aspects of their life. And so teaching classes, coming in and coming out and not really having that relationship with everybody that I could through video and through YouTube. And I realized that I had to kind of get over my fear of being on camera because being on camera was a way to actually fuel my purpose. So
all right. Did you hear that? You have to get over your fear, right? In order to step into that vision. And whether, again, it's a podcast or a video, I love that you said that, Katrina, because I think like anything that you do for the first time, it's uncomfortable. It feels awkward. I don't know if you know that we share the group exercise background together. I taught for 20 years. Exercise. I did. Yeah, I did. There's something so palpable about that energy in the room when you get everyone going that you don't get when you press record on camera, right?
Yeah. And it's quiet. Like in a group fitness room, you have the music pumping and all this stuff. And then when you record, it has to be silent. You add music after.
Yes.
So, and it gives you that perspective of watching your favorite movies where the music is so suspenseful. Like those actresses and actors are really good at what they do because they don't have that music. Like in Titanic, it was quiet.
Right.
That's crazy. And Titanic is known for the music. And that's such a crazy thing for me to even, I'm so random in what I say. And that's like, I'm talking right now, but like, it's crazy to even film like a hit workout or something and have no music. And then after it's added, because music really affects you and pumps you up. So I love group fitness. I miss teaching. And so I teach live workouts right now. And I love it because I can have music. And my husband actually DJs them. And
so great.
And you can see everyone in the class live. And I just live for that. And so I've been doing that, especially during quarantine. I'm like, how can I connect with everyone? Because we're just cooped up. So,
and that's what we have to remember to keep thinking about, Katrina, is how are we reaching people? If you can't do it in a live space, how else can you reach them? And you've done such an amazing job doing that. But I want to go back to Tone It Up. When you're looking at building a brand, I think so many people get nervous about, do I name it after myself? Do I name it after a thing? How do I decide what the name is? I'm so curious to know, how did you come to the decision of using Tone It Up as the brand name?
I can't take credit because it was Brian, my husband.
Tell you, those guys are good for something. I tell you.
Yeah, gotta keep it real. So I was in that, obviously naming a business after your name. There's so many successful, especially women-owned businesses whether it's a clothing line or something that's named after your name because you're like, okay, I'm going to go for it. I'm tying my name to this, which is it's very brave to do that. I wanted to create that. I was in Boston. I remember, this is so crazy. I remember sitting at my dining room table, staring at the same, the lines in the table. And I'll never forget trying to think of brand names. And anyone that has come up with a brand name has that moment and knows that moment. And it's a special moment. And so some people have asked me, why are you so tied to that brand name? People come in and they're like, should you rebrand and change the brand name? I'm like, what?
Never.
You don't understand. I remember the grain of wood that I stared at and cried and tried to figure out how I was going to do this, coming up with this. Every entrepreneur has that moment where they remember when they came up with their brand name. And that's really special. And so, and it was too expensive. It was $680, Tone It Up was. And it was a domain name. And I was like, that's more than my rent right now. I mean, this is 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I was calling Brian and he's just like, well, you kept saying Tone It Up. And, all women come to you and they're like, I don't want to lose weight. I don't want to do this. I just want to, I just want to tone.
Right?
And I'm like, what is that? Like, it's muscle tone. So I totally get it. But I told him, I said, I want the name of whatever I do in the future to be the result of how she feels. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want it to be about me because it's not about me. I wanted it to be about her. And instead of tying my own identity and DNA to this, I wanted her to be able to tie her DNA to this. And that ended up happening, not even on purpose, where women form Instagram handles that are TIU, so tone it up.
Yeah.
So he was just like, tone it up. And I was like, no, it's too expensive. So he calls me and he had a sales job. He's like, hey, I'm in between calls, but you really got to do tone it up. And I'm like, it's $688. And he was just like, I'll pay your rent next month. Like, whatever. And so he was moving and I was moving 3 months after him, but I was obsessed. My cat's right here. I was obsessed with trying. I wanted to know that I had something to move with because I had already built up such a strong clientele in Boston and I was personal training. I was so attached to my clients. And before I made the move to California with him, I wanted to make sure I had some sense of security of what I was doing. And so that was something that I absolutely obsessed over. And then as soon as I bought Tone It Up, I was like, this is going to be huge.
Done.
Sometimes you just know. And I was like, oh my God. And like thinking about the branding, the merchandising, like as soon as you have that, it comes to you, sit on it for a little while, buy a few other domain names. Like I bought some other ones. At first I had fitness-for-women.com. SEO. But it didn't have the zing. And so,
no.
But yeah, so I have Brian to thank because he's been, again, having someone who pushes you.
Yes.
Whether it's a mentor, mastermind group, family, friends, which I'm saying sometimes it's not always family and friends. And I'm very fortunate that my family and friends were like, yes, go for it. Like that. But I have run into a lot of people that that's not the case. It's okay because you can find people that will say, they'll shout from the rooftop your new brand name because they're so proud of you and they're excited and they'll help you. And to bounce ideas off of and say like, how does this sound? I wish I could remember some of the other, they didn't even stick with me on.
I think we have 40 or more domain names that we continually buy and be like, oh, well, we'll name something this, or what about this? And so I so relate to that, Katrina. You know, you said something though that I want to go back to because I think it's kind of the secret to what makes a brand really grow. And you said that your brand was not about you. Now, if you have a brand that is your name, it's still not about you. Like every brand is about knowing who you're talking to. And you said that so clearly, Katrina, that it was really about what does she care about? What's the result that I'm going to give her? Mm-hmm. And to me, I feel like that is something that more women need to understand when they're building a business is that in order for us to scale and grow, we need to understand that whether it's being on camera or the image of the brand, which I want to talk to you about, like it's really not about you. It's about the person you're serving.
Yeah. It's when you make it about her, it will grow and she can make it about her. Mm-hmm. You want her to be able to say, oh, this is for me.
Yes.
And we're obviously speaking about female businesses. He might also look at your brand and think it's for him.
All good, inclusive. Katrina, let's talk about how you've really infused yourself with the brand. You know, when I work with people, a lot of people struggle with, well, how much do I share? Do I have to share everything? I mean, you are very connected to your brand, your image, your family, you're very transparent, you're vulnerable. Why, number one, and why do you think that's important? And would you, looking back, what would you do differently?
I can't help, I have like goosebumps right now. I can't help but not have a relationship with something that I meet. So whether it's a brand or a person that's like, I still talk to clients that I personal trained in Boston, even that came to my classes. I still talk to them, whether it's through Facebook or Instagram. And once I connect with someone, I like to keep them. And so I hoard people, I guess.
I mean, you want to build relationships with people? I mean, crazy. I
don't want to ever let things go, which is also an issue. I mean, I've gone to therapy for it. When creating a company, it's like, there's a lot of people out there right now where their goal is to create a company, never have their identity tied to it and then sell it, and just be like, I'm going to build this to sell it. I'm not going to build this to have a relationship with the person, the consumer or the customer. I don't really say those words, but I have community. And so
yes,
I don't think that I intentionally did something or not. I just think it's in me and who I am. And so developing that relationship with your community is so important because it is a relationship. It's a two-sided relationship. And when you think about sales, I love this quote by Angie Lee. It's an exchange of confidence. And so if you're confident in the relationship and then she's confident in the relationship, and so showing that you are so confident, it's an exchange of confidence is what she said.
I love that. Yeah.
Like I'm so confident in what I do that I want her to feel that same way. And then it just locks in. If you name your business after your name, it's very brave. And anyone that did that, like that's listening, like, wow. And then the other part, if any of you are the face of your brand, very, very brave, because you have to realize whether you have 5, 10, 15, 100 employees or more, you will always be responsible.
Yes.
And so if you're a CEO of a company that is brand and you don't have to be the face of it, sometimes you can hand things off to HR, or if things happen in the public, we've seen a lot of that recently. You know, they hand off a PR letter that goes out and you get to sign it. But if you are the face of your brand, you take responsibility for everything forever. And so if there's a mistake over here or something happens with the business, you just have to be fully prepared for that. And it's not always pretty, but it's always a learning lesson. And so just knowing that if you're just starting out or you're a few years in or whatever, just know that when anything happens, even if it's not your fault, or even if you're like, you want to go out and be like, this wasn't me, it was over here.
Right.
I'm taking 100% responsibility for this and I'm going to make it right. Thank you so much. And I'm aligned with you, talking with your community, saying like, I totally hear you. And this is how we're going to correct it. No matter what business you're in, you're going to approach situations where you have to stand up and you have to stand up for everybody there. And taking responsibility is what a leader does.
Yes.
And so when you are the face of your business, you're not only a leader of the company, but you're the leader of everyone that is a consumer of your brand. Mm-hmm. And when something happens in the world, they're going to be expecting to hear from you. And so you have to have a voice, even when it shakes, even when you are stuttering.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of things that I'm a personal trainer, and I've had to learn web design. I've had to learn creative direction. I've had to learn customer service, and I've had to learn all these other things. If you also go into a situation when you're building a brand, you're like, that's not my expertise. That's okay. You hire people that can do great things, but you can never sit back and say that you're too good for that job. Like I still fill toilet paper at the company.
Yeah.
Empty.
Right. The janitor, the cook, the admin, we're everything, and you said something too that I think is really important is that you have to be willing to take 100% responsibility. And especially through these times, we're seeing a lot of leaders being called out, being challenged, and we see kind of what's happening in that landscape. But I did some research on this, Katrina, and I was actually fascinated to find out that consumers, right, our communities are much more likely to work with us if we take responsibility and say, you know what, I messed up. I'm so sorry. We're doing everything we can to correct this. Instead of saying, no, that wasn't me. That was the HR department, or this was someone else. Like they will stick with you through time if you take that responsibility. And so I just want to say, we need to own it as women leaders. Like we need to have a voice. We need to have a strong voice. And we need to also say we're imperfect. We make mistakes, and that's okay too.
Yeah, that actually inspired me on a lot of people have reached out to me recently and said, hey, I want to know what to say right now because Black lives matter. Mm-hmm. And they've always mattered. And they matter right now. And I don't know what to say. And my company doesn't have a face or, how do we address this? And I'm like, everyone right now wants to know that there's a human on the other side of anything. Humanize this, come out and say that you care. Mm-hmm. And so if you are not the face of your brand, don't be afraid to step out and be that face, especially when it matters the most.
Yeah.
And so when people really need to see that there are people behind the purpose and people behind the brand that they're talking to, like it goes a long way. So not just signing off an email and being like, okay, it's done.
Yes, I addressed it. It's over. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Like be that person and open it up. And it's not the last time. Like it's going to be a long journey of making sure that there's always open dialogue, and people appreciate transparency. Like being human, saying like, wow, I'm learning. And that's authentic too. I mean, people throw around the word authenticity, but it is so important for your brand. And so face or not, the name of your business is your name or not, whatever it is, the more human that you can be, the better it'll feel good when you go to bed at night. And that's how we want it to be.
I could not agree with you more. And in a world that is busy and saturated and everything's online and we're going a million miles a minute. It really is that authentic, transparent voice that is going to build community, not a glossy, perfect, everything's, rainbows and lollipops. And what I love about you too, Katrina, is that after you became a mother, and this is one of the things, I have followed you for a long time. I'm a big fan of your branding and who you are and the tribe you've built. But what I really loved about you, I have to say, is after you had that beautiful little girl, who, by the way, she just puts a smile on anyone's face. You were so authentic with showing up postpartum. I just had a baby too at 45. So it's a real thing, right? And so you feel this pressure. I just want to talk about this for a quick second, because I just think this ties in with the brand. You feel so much pressure to show up perfect, to show up in a way that you think other people expect, to show up in a way that you feel you need to show up as. And you, 3 months postpartum, you show you had the cutest little postpartum belly, and you weren't back to your ripped self, and you were totally okay and joyful with that. Can you share with me kind of why you decided to share that? Because I'm sure there was a little bit of, I don't want to say insecurity, but uncertainty perhaps in expressing that as you're the fitness expert, right?
Being in the business of bodies, it always comes back to that, right? And so it took a lot of work first. So for me, going into pregnancy, being very secure with surrendering to body changes. So as soon as there was a lot more cellulite, because I already had cellulite, so I was just this is obviously with hormones, this is going to happen. And so showing stretch marks, showing my body throughout the entire pregnancy, that was a lot of self-work pre-pregnancy. And so I think that's important too, just knowing that going into pregnancy, your body's going to change and it's a beautiful thing. And the fact that we're able to make life, you're allowed to cry at the foot of your closet because nothing fits. You're totally allowed to have those moments too. And I'm here to validate, yes, your feelings are real. If you don't want that stretch mark and you're lathering up with cocoa butter, I was doing that too. But if you have those marks too, those are your tiger marks, you're fierce. Yeah. That's amazing. And so there's a little bit of both. And of course, there's the, wow, I'm a fitness professional and everyone's expecting me to bounce back. And so many people said, bounce back. And, oh, you're going to be able to sell so many programs because you're going to show that you can be fit and you can bounce back right away and not even look like you even had a baby. And I was like, why do we want to look like we didn't have a baby, but we did? And why do I want to go backwards when we're going forward? And so I tried to really just sit back, hear what everyone was saying. And I was like, wow, when you tell a woman that she's going to bounce back, that's actually putting pressure on her. And so I had a lot of pressure as a fitness professional to bounce back and to sell programs by doing that. But I realized, as being the heaviest girl in my school growing up until about 6th grade, I knew that it may not look like that for me. It may or it may not. I didn't know. And not knowing, I was just I'm just going to share how it is. And so that 4th trimester, I don't want anyone to ever put pressure on themselves to lose weight. You are in survival mode, probably not sleeping, breastfeeding, your hormones are crazy. Your body is...
It's bananas. Yeah.
It's crazy. You're a newborn. And so don't worry about losing weight. So I didn't worry about losing weight. Maybe I could have, but I actually didn't worry about it. And I hardly worked out because I was tired. And I was breastfeeding and I was pumping through the night and I was dealing with a baby that woke up every 2 hours. And so I wanted to show that I wasn't worried about it. So that way she shouldn't either. And I actually think that I'm not concerned with selling programs, but I think it sold more programs.
I was just going to say that. I guarantee you it probably sold more programs. And I really want you to listen to this, my friends, that she was committed to being authentic and real. And I really feel, again, Katrina, the fact that you do that throughout your brand, you're so transparent. It's the key to building community. It is why people love you so much and will continue, right, to follow you no matter what you do. And the fact that, you're showing, hey, I'm imperfect. And when we give ourselves permission to show up real and vulnerable, we give other women permission to do the same. And yet, how many times do we get stuck in our mode of, I'm not perfect, I don't look good enough, I need to lose 10 pounds, my website's not good enough, before we decide to claim what it is that we really want to do. So I feel like you give such great validation to just be who you are, because there's not going to be another you, stretch marks, all of it, right?
Even when I think about that for a second, though, imagine for a second that I put all that pressure on. Obviously, I would have had to have someone else watch my daughter and maybe breastfeed them. I don't know how I would have pulled it off. I have no idea.
Here, take a boob, like go for it.
But imagine if I did put like even faked it. How would have I felt at the end of the day if I was just like, look at me now, I have my body back, like buy my program. I can't even fathom that. That doesn't even feel like my story. And so I don't know. And then I feel good right now. I feel like physically your body is something that obviously you live with your whole life, and very, very fortunate to be able to create my daughter. I've lost 2 babies. And so I shared that with you. And so won't cry, won't get into that. That's another podcast, right? That's another conversation, but I actually don't think I've said that out loud before. So you know, it's a beautiful thing. And if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, my body is different and all this and that, like that is beautiful. And the fact that you're able to make life, I mean, that's really, really great. And then if you can't, I'm there with you. And there are other things that we can do to try to grow. So.
Oh, Katrina, thank you so much for sharing that. And I will say that by you being vulnerable, again, you allow other women to show up as their true, authentic selves. And whether you're building a business or you just want to build a happy, inspired life, I really think there's nothing greater than just being unapologetically who you are. And it sounds so cliche, but it really is, I feel, the key to building an inspired business is doing that thing that feeds your soul, that feeds other people's soul. And if you came out 3 months postpartum looking like a cover model, not only would I want to go find you and beat you down, no, I'm just kidding. But you know, like other women couldn't relate to that. Like they would admire it, but they couldn't relate to it. And by you saying, hey, I'm just going to love myself through this right now. Again, I think you probably created a stronger tribe than ever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had friends that did have a 6-pack after, and I'm like, good for you.
Right.
Wasn't me. I agree with you. There's so many quotes that we see like live authentically you and this and that, but it's understanding that, not sitting back and saying, how can I be authentic is not authentic.
Yes.
Sitting back and saying, how can I live my life and make sure that I share that and I don't like being anything else than who you are is like, if you think about it, like you're lying. Mm-hmm. So if you want to lie to the people that are pressing follow and being part of your community, no. And so that's not naturally in you. So don't do something that's not naturally you.
No matter what people tell you to do, there's stories and stories, right, of people that have been molded to fit a person's ideal. And at the end of the day, all they want to do is rip off that mask and be who they are. And if you can do that from the beginning, realizing that every step you take, you're going to evolve into another version of yourself, but giving yourself permission to be who you are. And so, Katrina, I want to go back to business for a minute. You now are a mother. You are, you know, in a different part of your life right now, balancing things, even though I don't really believe in balance. But what advice would you give someone who, like you, sees this big vision for their life? Like they know deep down that they're meant to do something great.
There's a million things that I could tell her right now, but kind of just going on the theme of us talking right now, just you have a pure heart. So just share that. And whoever you want to attract into your life will come. And so people say like, oh, you've been able to create like a really positive community, whether it's fitness or mommyhood or even just sharing love of other things in life. Like you get to surround yourself with whoever you want. Whatever you want to do, it's actually up to you. If you try to be something else, you're going to get someone else. And so whatever you want in this life, and getting too sentimental here, like literally just do that. And if you attract 10 people, that should fulfill you. I actually miss the days of having a classroom where I'm teaching classes and it was a tight-knit family. And then I also miss the days where it was 1,000 women. And so just making sure you're happy along the way of growing too, and just doing things that make your heart happy, because it will make other people's hearts happy too.
It's so simple advice, but it's so true. I think we can get really caught up in false metrics of how many likes do I have? How many people are commenting? I don't have as big of a following as this person. And if you have a following of 10 that are with you, that are like,
those are 10 hearts.
Those are 10 hearts. Those are 10 people. Yes. And it starts there. You know, I think people feel like they wake up and all of a sudden they're going to have this huge following. And that following is cultivated over time, right? And you've had this, you know, brand now for how many years?
12, I think. But at the same time, like even putting a number on that, I believe community started when I was teaching classes in college. And when I saw girls coming into my group fitness class and then forming friendships and leaving that class and then, becoming friends who they were squatting with, like, that's amazing. And community, a lot of the women that are in the community were like the OGs were women that worked out with me in Boston or that were my personal training clients. And then now new chapters and new places that we can go. It's so much beyond how it even started. It's like, I don't know. I think that this has been a lifelong journey. My cat is playing with a ping pong ball. 12 years officially, I guess, registering an LLC, but everything that you do starts the moment you were born. You get to take things that you grew up learning and bring it into the rest of your life. And so your brand started years before you even named it.
Okay. I have chills right now because I could not agree with you more. Inspired living is who Keri has been since she was a little girl. It's just, this is the grown-up evolution of that, and it really is, your business is an extension of who you are. And the more you understand what and who and love and appreciate that person, man or woman, I think the easier it is to probably make decisions to grow your business. So I want to know, what are you most proud of? What do you feel has been the best decision you've made in your business? I know there's probably many in your life.
Yeah. Making women, oh my God, I didn't know I would cry so much during this.
It's okay. It's good.
Making women feel good about who they are. Seeing that in person and meeting women or going on an Instagram Live or seeing a photo from afar, I feel so connected. I feel like if I was able to tell her that she's beautiful and capable, whether it's doing burpees or whether it's starting a business or just feeling really confident as a mother or, someone going through a journey that I am now, wanting to grow our family, like whatever that is, just it goes so beyond. It's really just making her happy. I want everyone to just be happy. My cat wants to say hi again.
And I have to say, we feel that from you. I think that is probably, and we say so much, a brand is the way you make someone feel. And you can tell that it's so important for you to make people feel good. And so thank you for that. Now, I also have to ask the opposite question, even though I don't believe we ever really make mistakes. We're just constantly growing and evolving, even though I've made some doozies myself. But if you were to look back and say, gosh, you know what? I wouldn't do that again.
Yeah.
What would be that thing?
I can answer that so quickly. Bringing people into your dream and trying to make your dream other people's dream, and bringing people into your brand that don't understand that every single person that likes, but if it's 10 people, those are hearts. So as you grow your company, interviewing and referencing people is really important. Making sure that everyone that you bring into your dream understands that dream and understands how important that community is, and understanding that that's a real heart on the other side of it. That's because you're going to have people come in that want to start doing emails with you or for you without you.
We'll take it from here. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we got this. We can apply this best practice from this company over here that is completely different than yours and apply it over here. So I would say the biggest mistake is making sure, and I take responsibility for that 100%. So, and you should too, it's my responsibility to make sure that I bring the right people into this right here, because she who is following Tone It Up or whatever it is, we have a responsibility to her. And so I take responsibility for anything that doesn't feel authentic to that. And so, yeah.
But I will say sometimes you have the best intentions. And I will say one of the things that is the most challenging with building a business is building the right team and finding the right people. And so I think sometimes, Katrina, we bring in someone or we do something feeling it's going to be the best thing to do. And then we realize it wasn't. And I think that goes back to trusting your gut and making sure that if there's anything that feels off in the beginning, that you trust that. At least I'll speak for myself. There's been, little moments where I felt like, gosh, I didn't listen to myself there, but yeah, that's good advice.
And if you have a company, community, customers, big or small, whatever it is, not one company's the same. And so what you're doing is what no one else has done, unless you're literally ripping off someone and doing exactly what you're doing.
Which we do not recommend.
It's not even possible, because you don't know what another company's doing. So when someone even asks like who your competitor is, like, I don't even know. I'm like, who is doing exactly what we're doing?
Yeah.
And so you cannot hire someone and take advice from everybody that to go where you're going, because no one has been where you're going. Only you know where you can go. Hire really amazing people who believe in your dream and believe in your community and know that they're real hearts. Like that, at the end of the day, then you'll attract incredible, incredible people. We have the most amazing female president, Manhattan Beach woman. Her name's Marina. And I go on about her for like another podcast. Like
Brilliant. I want to hear more about her. Yeah.
Yeah.
And your team.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's great. And it feels really good at the end of the day where someone's like, oof, yep.
Yeah. I'm with you. I got this with you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love it, Katrina. You're such an amazing woman. Thank you for your time today. I want to wrap up by asking, what does inspired living mean to you?
Feeling inspired is something that obviously we're not all going to feel all day, every day. And when we expect that, we have that expectation like, oh, I should always feel inspired. So inspired living is having really beautiful moments of feeling inspired and living day to day to match that inspiration, and knowing that you're going to have your tough days and you're going to have your amazing days, but you're still living inspired. You're still doing great things. So I hope that that's a good answer.
It's the perfect answer, which brings me to, what are you up to next? Like, what's next for you?
I feel like I'm kind of getting to know myself. I know that sounds so crazy. I'm literally the same person in 6th grade as the way that I feel emotionally and connected and wanting relationships and all those things. But I definitely don't even feel the same as I was a year ago. So I think that you can be totally the same child that you were always, or have the same feelings, but then you can also really evolve as a person. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does. And I think I always say I'm on Keri 5.0. Like there's some version, right? It's like we never lose who we are, but we're constantly evolving into who we're going to continue to become.
Oh, I'm into it. I feel like I feel a little more awake than I ever was before. I'm really, really focused on family and really taking a step back and going, oh, I don't have to have it all figured out. Mm-hmm. And I'm really, really open to what the next few years take me. And I feel like for a while I was very planned. I was like, oh, I'm going to move to California. I have to have the brand name. You see how I was like, I have to know this. This is what we're going to do. And like, I was always very planned. And then now I'm just completely surrendered, and I've completely freed all of my energy, which is a really great book, by the way, everyone, Free Your Energy. I no longer feel really responsible if you feel completely responsible for everything and everyone around you, then you're not going to take care of yourself. And then in turn, you're not going to be able to give. And so we all hear that, but it's so true, where I feel like I felt very responsible and very I had to know exactly where everything was going. And now I feel like I'm able to just, being selfish isn't totally selfish sometimes. Mm-hmm. You're taking care of everyone just by being you and discovering you and evolving. You can't evolve if you're constantly
planning.
Oh my gosh. Yes. You can't be creative when you're living in a state of fear and fear of change. And so, so for what's next for me, I just feel like I want to serve more women in that way and evolve together and learn more. So
I think we just heard a big sigh of relief, right? That, oh my gosh, we don't have to have everything figured out at every moment. I actually love the Walt Disney quote when he was asked about his vision. He's like, I don't know. It's just bright and sparkly and it's out there, and I think we have to just give ourselves permission to just be. Katrina, thank you so much for your time today. If people want to connect with you, what is the best way to do that?
Oh, Katrina Scott on Instagram. And then you can also text me. If you go to my Instagram, you go in the link in my bio. If you text me, you can also get inspirational texts and videos and things, just straight my life to yours. And when you hear from me on text and you're like, oh my gosh, I needed to hear that today, I'm actually sharing what I needed that day. And so Sometimes I'll send out an inspirational quote and someone will be like, oh my gosh, how did you know I needed that? And I'm like, I needed that.
You're like, yes.
It comes home. And then of course I teach workouts in the Tone It Up app, and it's amazing. And you can find me in there too.
All right, beautiful. We'll make sure to have all of those links too in the show notes here. And again, you can join us at the Brilliant event. Go to thebrilliantevent.com. And thank you so much for sharing and being with us today.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
All right, bye-bye. You've just heard another uplifting episode of Inspired Living with Keri Murphy, the podcast. I hope you loved it. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And if you'd like to know more about Inspired Living or to get your hands on many of our awesome free resources, such as the Be Studio Ready Guide, simply visit us at inspiredliving.tv/podcast. Remember, your vision is your destiny, and we're here to help you bring it to life. Join me again next week for another extraordinary episode.